we're alive. Oh, but somewhere, somehow we all learn to hide it. Don't show the fire in your soul, just keep it inside. Yeah, keep it inside. Oh, hiding away in the darkness. Oh, but the sunlight, it fights to get in. Break down the walls that I built for myself. I'm so vulnerable, I wanna let go. I surrender.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to our final Fireside Chat on mental health with songwriters. I am Ariel Silver, the program manager and a songwriter. I'm over at the SONA Foundation, and we have been working with Backline as our partner organization to bring you these chats for the last year and a half. This is the last one of 2024. Welcome to December. We're going to be having a really important and valuable conversation on eating disorders with a couple of our guest songwriters today, and of course, our conversation facilitator, the Backline Community Manager, Terra Lopez. We also have a guest clinical counselor on the show today, and I will let Terra introduce all of those people to you. I just want to say thank you so much for being here. We are live, so if you are watching live, please chime in the chat with your stories, your questions, your comments. Also, let us know where you're tuning in from. And if you're watching this on the replay, feel free to also chime in on the chat. This is like all our other videos, posted on our website, sonafoundation.com, and on our YouTube channel, the SONA Foundation YouTube channel. And we love to see those comments come in, and it helps us to learn from you what our future programming and our future conversations in these fireside chats will be. Thank you to everybody who has supported the SONA Foundation so that we can continue these chats with Backline, and also so that we can continue and bring back in 2025 our therapy assistance program, which is a grant to help songwriters get the therapy that they need. Helping our songwriters in that mental health realm is so important to us. And we have two other pillars as part of the SONA Foundation: career development, and we have some exciting programs coming to you in 2025, as well as financial wellness. We will be continuing our Music and Money series next year, and very excited about that one as well. So let me think of what else I should let you know. If you missed any of the chats this year, we've had some really great conversations, starting with last January at the beginning of 2024. We had Therapy 101, where we just talked about all things therapy. And from there, we've also had each month conversations about long-term illness, women in music, being a woman in the male-dominated industry. We've talked about mental health and touring. We have talked about parenting in various ways, bipolar disorder, Black experience in the music industry and in this culture in general. We've also talked about panic attacks, family conflict, and last month our topic was addiction and sobriety. So this month, obviously, we were talking about eating disorders, and next month we are slated to talk about our stage fright. And that's a topic. All of these topics, many of them anyway, are very close to my heart and really always important conversations. So I hope that you'll join us. If you're not already on our mailing list, you can sign up at the sonafoundation.com right there. I'm going to bring Terra Lopez in. She is the community manager of Backline, and she will be facilitating the conversation as always. So here we go. Terra, come on in. Hi.
Hey, Ariel.
Really great to see you, and just in the throes of the holiday season right now. So I hope all is well on your side.
Absolutely. Yeah, this is the last day for Backline's office to be open. So I'm really excited to end it with an incredible chat.
It's been a really great year. I've been watching all the stuff going on at Backline all year long, the stuff that's going on for you with your podcast, and then, of course, all the stuff that's happening with the SONA Foundation. It feels like it's been a really rich year, lots of important conversations, and, just kind of allowing the human experience to rise up in this day and age of artificial intelligence, right? So important.
Yeah, meaningful connections and the feedback from these conversations that we've hosted together over the last year has just been really incredible and really encouraging. I think a lot of folks in the industry are feeling seen and heard. So I'm excited to keep them going next year.
Absolutely. I'm going to absent myself from this conversation now and just bring you to the forefront so that you can introduce our guests for today. Thanks so much for being here.
Hey everyone, I'm Terra. I'm the community manager and head of artist partnerships at Backline. And as you know, we have a special fireside chat today with the SONA Foundation. Just in case you don't know, Backline's a resource hub for the music industry. We provide mental health and wellness resources to the music industry as a whole and to family members. Today, we have some very special guests as we talk about eating disorders and body image. We have Lynne, who's a musician and writer from LA who brings years of experience to the conversation as a touring and recording artist. She's also a poet and a literary writer. We also have LA-based Swedish singer-songwriter Lynne Holmes. Lynne performs in a number of transcontinental bands and has released her debut EP this year to critical acclaim from Billboard and more. And lastly, we have licensed clinical social worker Kimberly Hershenson. Kimberly is certified in cognitive behavioral therapy for eating disorders and is a lecturer on eating disorders and an associate teacher at Columbia University School of Social Work. And she also serves on the board of the International Associate of Eating Disorder Professionals as speaker chair. So lots of experience there. I'm very excited for this conversation. As always, Ariel is going to be moderating the chat box, so please feel free to drop your questions, any questions that you might have, and we'll make sure to get to them, and also your personal experiences. So we're going to let everyone into the chat. Hey, everyone, how's it going?
Hi, Terra.
Hi.
Hi, thank you all so much for being here today, especially being so forthright in speaking about this very, very important topic and sharing your experiences. I always like to start this conversation just as with a disclaimer that this is a conversation, less interview style. So please feel free to chime in if someone says something that resonates with you. Feel free to just kind of piggyback off of that, and we'll just have an honest conversation about our experiences. And Kimberly, we're so excited to have you and your expertise here today. Thank you so much.
Oh, of course. I'm happy to be here.
Well, first off, I like to kick off these conversations with just asking how everyone is today. So VK, you want to kick it off?
I'm pretty good today. I'm coming back from an ear infection / COVID filled month. So I'm trying to just relax and let the healing happen.
Love to hear that. Hope you're on the tail end of that. Lynn, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm sitting here in snow, cold Sweden, just trying to get through the jet lag, honestly. I'm pretty good.
Yeah, jet lag's very real. Kimberly, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really, really great, wrapping up work, and I'm also a mom of 4, so we're getting ready for the holidays.
Oh gosh, all right. Well, thank you so much for taking time again, all three of you, out of your busy schedules to talk about this today. Kimberly, I thought it would be really great to kick off the conversation with just asking you how eating disorders are defined and what even distinguishes an eating disorder.
Sure. Well, a lot of people, do have issues with food just in general, like as a society. Just because you may have issues with body image or certain, ways you like your food doesn't classify it as an eating disorder. Generally, there are 3 main types of eating disorders, I would say. Anorexia, which involves restriction. It used to be categorized by a low body weight and loss of a period. That's no longer in the DSM, which is the medical guidebook, because as we now know, you don't just have to be a woman to have anorexia. Typically, there is weight loss, but sometimes there isn't. But it's that excessive restriction that can be categorized as anorexia. With bulimia, it's often consuming large amounts of food in a short amount of time and purging. And purging can be through vomiting, it can be through laxative abuse, or it can be through exercise. And then compulsive overeating is eating large amounts of food in a short amount of time without purging, without trying to get rid of the food. There's other subspecies of eating disorders. There's orthorexia, which is not classified yet. And that's just when people are, very regimented about the quality of the food, not the quantity, low sugar or low gluten or whatever it is. So those, typically when you're seeing anything to the extreme takes it to another level, which can be classified as an eating disorder.
Thank you so much for breaking that all down. And also, just reiterating that it's not only women that experience eating disorders, and we all have connections to food.
And it has nothing to do with weight either. You can be of normal body size, even if your doctor's saying your BMI is at a higher level. It doesn't mean you don't have an eating disorder. It doesn't mean that you can't be showing signs of anorexia.
Very, very important to remember. Thank you so much. BK and Lynn, I'd like to know when you first noticed your relationship with food or your body began to change, when you first realized, okay, maybe there's something there.
I had a very controlling manager a few years back, and he had come from managing supermodels to managing musicians. So it's not too far of a leap for me to discover that his idea of management was, well, you've got to lose weight. And I wasn't really heavy to start with, but you know how in your mind, you're always a little heavy in your mind. I was a chubby kid. I come from a family of bigger people, and I've always had a fear of that because I saw a lot of my family members struggle with health issues related to weight, and so I saw extra weight as heart disease and diabetes, and I saw all the health problems, and so to me, weight equaled unhealthy immediately. So when he was pushing for that, it didn't seem like a bad thing. I thought, well, if you lose weight, you're healthier. So in my brain was, well, the less fat you have, the more healthy you are. That's where my brain went. And I just started very slowly, and I thought, well, I'll just drop a few pounds. But it became oddly addictive. And I thought, well, I foolishly, I was like, well, I can't be too thin, right? Like, I mean, this will be great. This will be great. And I should have known better. And I think that's what I carry most with me from it, because I was old enough to know better. I was smart enough to know better. And I judged myself very harshly for letting things get as bad as they did, because I thought I was ashamed of myself. I was like, you know better than this. And you should really be ashamed of yourself. So then I wouldn't even let myself, have that. I wouldn't give myself grace for that. I was embarrassed that I had let myself get so sick at the age that I did. I mean, like I said, this is only a few years back now, so I won't tell you how old I was, but it was well past the age when I should have known better. And my band actually were the ones who called me out on it. They said, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I said, well, the manager. And I said, well, and they said, screw that guy. Like, I had a drummer who literally between beats used to go, eat a cheeseburger, and he meant well. But when I finally realized it wasn't helping the band, it wasn't helping them, it wasn't helping anybody, it was actually hurting everyone, then I found out I was in a worse place I was than when I started. And that was really hard to swallow. So I try now, like if I see any of the young girls struggling, I try to jump in and be like, hey, let me help you, because I don't want you to go through this. It's such a horrible thing to find yourself in and to come back from, and you're never really free of it. There's always that part of you that looks at a piece of food and immediately the calories, like I can tell you what is in everything and it's ridiculous. And so I try to be helpful to the younger folks now that are struggling, because it never ends. it never ends.
Lynn, does any of that resonate with your own story?
Absolutely. I think I've had those thoughts around food since I was it was kind of drilled into my head as a pretty young teenager. But I think I kind of through COVID, when everything was just so crazy, it all kind of became it started as in some sort of like discipline or like some sort of control, needing to have something that is consistent and in control and felt managed by me. And then just like similarly, I didn't really notice I was getting that sick. And not too long ago, I started noticing, well, a year ago, but I started noticing that my heart was doing weird things. And all of a sudden, all these kind of very alarming symptoms started appearing. And I still didn't know. I still didn't really catch what was going on. I thought it was all normal. And I ended up going to a hospital, and they put me in the hospital right away. And it turns out the damage to my heart was really, really, really severe. And they told me I would need a pacemaker and all these things. And I still did not really realize how bad it was. But then when I started, I started in treatment, and it took a little bit to realize, and talking to the people around me, similarly seeing just how, it just hurt me, it hurt everyone. And I also felt silly towards the end of the worst period, I'd say, because I didn't realize. I had no clue that I was doing it to myself. It didn't cross my mind. But, it's so hard in that way because you don't really, a lot of times it's so disguised.
Mm-hmm. Kimberly, in your experience helping others with eating disorders, VK mentioned that shame and that guilt. And is that something that you often see when helping others, that internalized shame and guilt?
Yeah, it comes up all the time. A lot of my patients, will tell me, like, I have such a great life. In gratitude, I have a house and I have a job and I have friends and nothing's so horrible. Sometimes it is really bad and they're using the eating disorder to cope, but also, sometimes people do feel like, why am I doing this to myself? And they have a hard time understanding that you shouldn't blame yourself. There's nothing to blame. This is your way of coping with things that you don't know how to cope with. This comes from a sense of when usually it stems from feeling out of control about something in your life. It has nothing to do with your weight. It has nothing to do with your body. It has nothing to do with food. It's outside things that feel so out of control, and you just don't have the tools yet to help you cope. So with my patients, what I often see is once they have the tools, whether it's yoga, meditation, relying on music, going outside in nature, journaling, whatever it is, you find other ways to cope with the things that feel unmanageable. You start feeling the symptoms start shifting and the focus becomes less about your body and less about food and more on healthier things. But yes, shame is a huge part of it. I'm also fully recovered myself, which is how I got into the field. And I used to not share that like with anybody. I was like, I'm not talking about this. And once I started opening up about it, not only did it benefit my patients, I don't tell them, anything about what I went through, just they know that I'm recovered. They feel a sense of ease, like, oh, she gets it, not only from a professional standpoint, but from a personal standpoint. And once I shared about my experience, I'm like, there's nothing to be shameful for. I just didn't have the proper tools back then, and I do now.
So important. VK, Lynn, you were saying that you started seeing that it was hurting everyone around you, bandmates, family members. How did your eating disorder affect your life or your relationships with bandmates, or your mental health during that time?
Well, my husband and I had been married for a long time when this happened, and he couldn't understand why I was doing this. He kept saying, "Why are you doing this?" He's like, "I never asked you to do this. Like, what?" And it was really hard for him to understand. And I mean, we would try to go out to dinner, and I would go into full panic attacks because I'd be looking at the menu. And I'm like, I don't know what's in this. I don't know. And and at one point he said, "We used to have fun with food." And he was so sad about that. And I said, yeah, and it was these gradual things. And I, at one point he grabbed me by the shoulders and he said, "I'm going to say something horrible to you, but I don't know how else to reach you." He's like, "You are not attractive to me anymore." He says, "You look like a 12-year-old boy, and I don't know what to do with this. And if this shakes you out of this, then that's what I have to do." And it was jarring. It was very jarring because I thought he would like me to be thinner. And he's like, "Why would you think that? I have never once asked you to be thinner or even made a comment to that." And it was like all these false beliefs that I think society gives us as women. And once again, then I felt stupid for falling for that. I was like, you're smarter than that. What is wrong with you? And it was interesting because I thought, if a grown woman who does know better and does have, some intelligence and whatnot can fall into that, what chance do the young girls coming up, in their teens and whatnot, what chance do they have? And it really concerned me for them. I think that's why I continue to try to work with women's groups where there's younger girls involved, because I don't know how they're coping in the world the way it is now. And I have read articles that now with the rise of Ozempic, we're going to see a return to the skinny fad. And I went, oh my God, no. I don't think it's ever been a fad. I think it's always been a thing, but I think it's going to get worse. And I don't know what that means for some of these kids. And I think Kimberly, I do still struggle with feeling that I should have been better than that in some way. And it's, yeah, I intellectually you can know a thing. It's very hard sometimes when there's that little voice in your head that hates you. I don't know if everybody's got that voice in their head that hates them, but I've got a little man in my head who hates me, and he tells me that, "You're an idiot. Why did you do that?" And still occasionally says, "And you shouldn't eat that either." And I'm like, ah. So it's a really evil and insidious kind of thing. And I sympathize with anyone who's struggling, because it's pretty powerful.
Thank you so much, VK, for that vulnerability. I think a lot of us, if not all of us, can really resonate with that internal conflict. And also, being in the music industry, we all know, let alone society, but specifically if we're just looking through the lens at the music industry, how pervasive body image expectations are, specifically for women. So it's absolutely valid to feel this pressure. Lynn, how did your struggles affect your relationships with folks in your life?
I think in the beginning, I just kind of, I don't know, I started getting less social. But towards when it was at its worst, I mean, it was so isolating. I was just isolating myself. I was strictly just working. And I just didn't, it was a weird combination of not really wanting to be out and about and just simply not having the energy to. Like, I remember there were times when after gigs or after shows, like, I would look in the mirror and I would just start turning blue because I was so cold. And I noticed after shows or going to other friends' shows or being at work or whatever it could have been, I remember people coming up to me asking if I was okay because I was literally blue. And so I started just kind of being out and about and just sticking more to myself. And it also made it a lot harder to kind of realize what was going on because no one was really checking it as much, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Kimberly, you mentioned tools for being able, like, folks can access these tools when they're struggling. Can you share some of the tools or some of the tangible ways that you work with folks on getting past that shame and getting past that guilt that VK was talking about, or the isolation that Lynn had mentioned?
Sure. So one tool that I really love is called HALT. It's an acronym. So basically, HALT is to stop. So I tell people to try and ask themselves, am I in HALT mode right now? This means what's really going on with me internally. Am I hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? Because a lot of times people will reach for food as a way of coping when something else is really going on. So you need to stop and ask yourself, am I really hungry? Do I really want this food? And oftentimes people don't even know if they're hungry. So you kind of have to look, when was the last time I ate? If it's been 3 or 4 hours, you're probably hungry. Or maybe you ate an hour ago, but it was something very small. So yeah, you're hungry. You do need to eat. If you have just eaten, then it's probably something else going on. So if you're angry, what's going on? Did you have an interaction with somebody that was really pissing you off that you didn't address? Then you need to focus on that. Sit down and journal. Write them a letter, curse them out. Don't send it to them, but like get your feelings out. Go for a drive, go in the shower and just start screaming. If it's not angry, you're not angry, maybe you're lonely. What do you do for loneliness? Call up a friend you haven't spoken to in a while. Call up somebody, a family member, and just be like, hey, what's going on? How are you doing? Without even necessarily talking about yourself. Go to the nearby coffee shop and just surround yourself with people. And if it's not that, if it's tired, sometimes when people are tired, they make decisions about food that they normally wouldn't make. I'm so tired, I don't want to cook, so I'm just going to reach for this. No, like have a meal and go to sleep. The beautiful thing that I notice about, especially my children, and people will notice this about kids, when they're tired, they're not like, I'm going to muscle through and keep going. They're like, no, I'm going to nap right here. They're just like, and when kids are hungry, given they don't have an eating disorder, but when kids are hungry, they're not like, well, let me check what's in this. And did I already have a carb today? Or that? No, they're like, I'm hungry. I want that. Let me have it. So I think HALT's a very good tool. The other few things I would recommend, I think gratitude journaling is wonderful. If you can sit and just list every day 5 things that you're grateful for, that helps. Now, there's a caveat to that. I see that people get stuck in their head when they do their gratitude list. Like, well, I'm grateful I have a family. I'm grateful I have a job. And the guilt comes in. Well, then I shouldn't be, doing this. No, you can have a job and be grateful you have a job and freaking hate your job at the same time. You can say, I hate my job, but I'm grateful I have my job. Or my mom makes me really angry, but I am very grateful for her. Or I'm grateful I was able to have children, but they make me very upset. Like those two emotions can happen at the same time. So do your gratitude list, but don't have guilt about it. Some other tools that I love. Any deep breathing exercise I think is really great. A lot of times people are like, I don't know how to do this. A very simple one, carry a straw with you. If you're environmentally friendly, carry a metal straw. If you're not, a regular straw will do. You bring that straw out, you just blow in and out through the straw, and it just calms you down. And then a final one I can share It's not easy, but it helps. Getting in the shower, you don't even need to wash yourself, but just getting in the shower and running the water really cold, or running your hands under freezing cold water in a sink. If you're at a restaurant and you're stressed out at the meal, go in the bathroom real quick, put your hands under cold water, and it just brings everything down. So those are a few tools I have offhand.
Thank you so much. That's really, really helpful. And hopefully folks who are tuning in can kind of write these down. Especially, I really love if you're at a restaurant, you're starting to feel panic, go into the restroom,
Yes.
take a couple of minutes for yourself and use that cold water to kind of bring you back and ground you. I love that. I want to know, VK and Lynn, did you find it difficult to talk about your struggles with those in your life while you were in it?
A little bit, because I took a weirdly aggressive stance with them initially, that I was like, well, why are you hating? Why are you hating? Like, because at the same time as it was my therapist said it was the perfect storm. At the same time that my manager was pushing on me to lose weight, I had two female friends in my life who said, you know what we should do? We're reaching an age where if we don't have the body we want, we're never going to have it. So let's make a pact. We're going to get our eating in order. We're all going to lose weight. And then we're going to get, swimming suits from Victoria's Secret for the summer. And we're going to congratulate ourselves on our achievement. So I also was like, oh, so it seemed to me like everything in my life was lining up to lose weight. The two friends, each of them gained 10 pounds in that time. And I lost 20 pounds that I didn't have to lose. And they kind of got annoyed with me and they said, oh, you did it. And I said, you said we should do this thing. So then I was mad at them because I felt like, well, why did you? And I still have a friend to this day. This is now many years ago. And she's like, I still feel guilty. I feel like that was my fault. I'm like, honey, it wasn't your fault. It wasn't your fault at all. There were just a bunch of factors that in my bizarre brain, it all worked out. But when I finally did realize I'd actually gone to the gym. I remember the day I had gone to the gym again, which I lived at the gym. I should have just paid rent there. And, I had noticed I had lost 2 more pounds, and I was so excited. I was so excited because I was going in increments of like 2, 5, 2, 5. And, I looked at the scale and I heard my husband's voice, because he had said to me the last time I had lost 2 more pounds, he said, when is it going to be enough? When will you hit that magical number that you're okay? He said, I don't think you're going to. And I was this funny moment because I got excited, and then immediately the excitement turned into, oh, he's right. Because right after I was excited, I thought, okay, well, now in 2 more. And I immediately went to, okay, well, 2 more. And I remember calling the friend who feels guilty on the way home from the gym. And I said to her, I just lost 2 more pounds. I said, I think something might be wrong with me. And she went, yeah, we all know that. And I'm like, really? And she said, yeah, nobody knew what to say to you. And I said, oh my God. So I got home, I sat my husband down. I said, I think you're right. I think something's wrong. And he said, yeah, something's definitely wrong. And from that point on, I talked to everybody in my life about it, because I was like, did you all know this? Like, and everyone said, yeah, you didn't notice the faces we would make. Like, I had gone to a concert, like Lynn was saying, you go out, see your friends play. And, there was a girl I hadn't seen in a few months, and she walked up. She didn't even see me until she almost bumped into me. And then when she did, she went, and then she tried to collect it really quick. And she went, oh, hey. And I didn't, and all those things started flashing through my brain once I made the connection. And I thought, oh my gosh, have I been like this for a while now? So once that happened, then I was like, yes, I'm going to talk to everybody about this, because I've got to get better. And the only way to get better is by like taking in the information, figuring out what you need to do, getting yourself together. So yeah, once I started talking, I couldn't stop.
Lynn, what about you?
It was kind of the same for me. When I initially got hospitalized, it kind of everyone kind of found out at the same time. A lot of people did, at least. And for the people who hadn't noticed it before, it's because I have still a lot of friends and family in Sweden that I don't see regularly as I live in LA. But I kind of got the same reactions and in the beginning, I felt really guilty talking about it. Like, I didn't really know how to address it because I didn't feel that anyone should feel pity, or it felt weird discussing it with people in general just in the beginning because I did not really know how to talk about it because I didn't realize how painful it actually was. Even when I was in the hospital, it just didn't really hit me. And it was it was kind of a brutal 2, 3 days. And I still came out of it not really realizing. And it was only a couple months later when, like, I got the same, like, everything just kind of, like, lined up, almost like all the puzzle pieces of what had been going on the last year. It all just kind of clicked. And then all of a sudden, I felt a lot more comfortable talking about it when I realized what was going on and what had been going on and how I felt about it. And since then, I feel like I haven't been able to stop talking about it almost.
Kimberly, what VK and Lynn both mentioned is, those in their circle kind of realizing there might be a problem, or there definitely is a problem, but not knowing how to address it. What advice do you have for loved ones who might know that their loved one is struggling, but they don't know how to confront it?
Yeah, I think people have a lot of fear about addressing this with family or friends, but I think it's really important too because you can be saving somebody's life. I think it's best to interventions tend to be very tricky because a person feels, when they're confronted with so many different people surrounding them, they feel sort of like they're being attacked. So I would say it would be very helpful to do it one-on-one with the person and say to them, I'm very concerned about what's going on, and point out exactly what you're noticing. I'm noticing you're uncomfortable around food. I'm noticing, there's been a shift in the way that you're socializing with people. You seem like you're not interested in things anymore. And, approach it from a team approach. Like, we need to work on this and get you help. And I think it's really important to have a whole team behind you. I think a therapist is crucial. I think a dietitian is also very important. And if it's at the level where it feels uncontrollable, then going into a hospital setting, whether it's outpatient or inpatient, is really important. And I think it's very important to have a good primary care physician to just stay on top of you, not necessarily just your weight, but also monitoring your heart, because your electrolytes can get off balance, and making sure you're getting tested, and just making sure that you have a really solid team behind you. So if you're noticing this in your family, and anyone in your family or any of your friends, speak up. And you know what? Worst case scenario, they get angry. You need to speak, because you're going to regret it if you don't.
Thank you for that. VK and Lynn, how has this experience kind of shaped your music and your output? Has music been a catharsis for you during this time?
I mean, for me, yes, because it spoke to a bigger thing. I realized the music industry, it's well, at least certain corners of the music industry are very, very invested in control and making sure artists do things the way they want them to. They look the way they want them to. They produce the way they want them to. And so once I realized that it wasn't just about the way I looked, it was about this man wanting to control what I was doing. And I decided I'm not going to do that anymore. He wanted to decide what genre I played. He wanted to control what songs I sang. He wanted me to play his songs, which that's what it all came down to. And they feel like if you are weak, if you are tired because you haven't eaten, if you are busy counting calories, you are not counting royalties. And so I decided I'm going to take this back. And that's when I just started really just kind of doing things my way. Now, there are people who would argue that's why I have not, broken through, but I'm okay with that. I was told not to dye my hair pink, not to get tattoos, not to play heavy metal, not to do this, there are many things I was told not to do. And after seeing myself almost on my deathbed from trying to do what the industry wanted me to do, I decided the industry is going to have to take me the way I am or not take me at all. So I've really stuck to that since then. I let it pervade through everything, not just what I eat, but what I do and what I think. And there are still days when I struggle, when I think, well, if I were a little more this or I were a little more that. And then I remember, no, you almost died for this idea. Don't do it. Just keep doing your thing. And if it's meant to be, it'll be. But I know it's really hard. It's really hard. I mean, I talk to other musicians, especially, like I said, especially the younger ones, all the time. And well, this one said that I should, and it's always someone who is not an artist themselves telling them what they should do to be a good artist. Mm-hmm. And it makes me crazy. It makes me want to just, tear my skin off. Because it's not worth it. It's not worth it. And I know girls who are on the heavier side, who have people, pounding them that they've got to lose weight. And I always tell them, if you're happy with the way you are, don't lose weight for anyone else. It's just not about that. It's just not about that at all. It's not going to change the trajectory of your career, if you suddenly are a skeleton. And in fact, what it's going to do is it's going to change the trajectory of your life, and it's going to make it much harder for you to achieve everything that you want. So yeah, that's yeah.
Lynn, what about you?
I think similarly, again, I think music for me kind of became my promise to myself to keep going. Because I did for a while. I mean, that was what I came to Los Angeles for. That was what the only real thing that I've done that I knew, kind of. So when I started losing interest in that, and when I was, quite literally on my deathbed and being told that I would not be able to continue, it just kind of became that promise to myself that I need to keep doing this. Like, that has to be the focus. That has to be, if not anything else, that will be a reason for me to recover. And I mean, it was hard, but I tried to stick to it as much as I could, and it did push me through the first part.
And if I may say, Lynn is incredibly talented and one of the sweetest people in the world. And when I found out she was struggling, I just wanted to burn down the whole world of anyone who made her feel that way, because it was just, I was so angry. I was so angry at the industry, because I'm telling you, she's a glorious human being. And we need your music, babe. We need your music. So yeah, we're getting cookies. We're getting cookies.
And amazing support. When I got out of the hospital, VK reached out to me. You were one of the first people that did, and you've been such a wonderful support.
I was happy to do it. I love you.
I love you.
That's what we need more of in this industry, that kind of support, that peer support. That's really beautiful that y'all have each other. I want to know, what does recovery look like now on a daily basis for you?
I feel like for me, it looks like freedom. just the freedom to kind of do what I actually want and to live how I actually want, and not in a way that I feel like I'm supposed to, or in a way that I feel like I'm pressured to or expected to, or just, I mean, of course, being kind and respectful, of course, but being able to make life choices just because I want to. Just that freedom. I did not realize how, not how underrated, but how badly it was taken away when I was sick. And I feel like that's been my main kind of staple in recovery for now.
Yeah, yeah. I guess for me, it's been a bunch of years now, and so I think for me, recovery is reminding myself when I feel myself slipping, because I will sometimes slip, and I'll start restricting again, or my husband will see me with my little app, and I'm putting in, and he says, "What are we doing? What are we doing, buddy? What are we doing?" I'm like, so he's actually a really great support. I mean, he's a healthy guy. He works out all the time, and he'll kind of say, "Okay, well, we can have a little treat. So let's have a little treat, but like it doesn't mean that, everything's lost. Life is not over. And then, we'll box, we'll work out. Well, it'll be great." So he's just the voice of reason when he knows that the unreasonable voice in my head is really loud. He comes in and is like, "Hey, it's okay." So it's nice. It's nice to have that support, of someone who doesn't judge me, who is, he can tell when I'm spiraling a little bit. He can smell it. So it's less and less, I think, every year.
I want to say, in terms of recovery, a lot of times there's this misconception that there is this definition of what recovered means. I personally think recovery is whatever it means to you. And I think as not only a woman in our society, but anybody in our society, we all have issues with body image or food to some extent. We all have days where it's like, I don't really like how I look, or I just had that. I don't know. I feel a little guilty. It's where you go with your next action. Just because you might have these thoughts doesn't mean it's all your recovery is fallen by the wayside. Just because you have a day where maybe you have engaged in some symptoms, it doesn't mean everything's gone. It's a slip, and you get right back up and you keep going. And I really want to emphasize for people, especially that struggle with purging and with binging, when you engage in that behavior and you're on your road to recovery, that does not mean you need to restrict. If you binge, you need to get up and have your next meal, your full meal. If you purge, okay, get back up, you have your next meal. And same, you restrict one day, doesn't mean, if you restrict breakfast, okay, the next day you have your breakfast. Like, you got to get right back on that horse and keep going. And I think recovery is not like this. It's more of a like this. You have days that are not good. You have days that are better, but the downs don't go as far down. It's down, up, and they get littler and littler and littler to the point where you don't really think about it so much. And I think when you're further along in your recovery, I would say food and weight have, their normal place. You go to the doctor, they weigh you, you don't need to look, you want to look, fine. Hopefully, you're not bothered by that. And food, you can have it. And, that voice that VK was talking about, it's so quiet. It's like, I feel guilty. Doesn't matter. Shut up. I'm having it anyway. So, I think that's kind of the trajectory of recovery.
It's so important to remember that recovery, it's not linear. Just like grief, it comes in waves. There's days where it's easier. There's days where it's harder. And I think that that's so important to take away from this conversation, is like, it's not a setback per se. It's just
life.
It's life. Yeah. That's really, really, really great advice. And just to remember we're human. We're not robots, right? What role has, and Kimberly, this is also a question for you as a therapist, what role has self-compassion played in your healing journey? And how do you practice that on a daily basis?
Self-compassion is crucial because I feel like the eating disorder, we all know this. Anyone that struggled, there's that eating disorder voice, and then there's the healthy voice. The eating disorder voice is the one that's like, you're stupid, you're lazy, you're worthless, you're fat, you're this, you're that. And the healthy voice, obviously, is the opposite of that. And self-compassion, that's the healthy part of you. You know, when you make mistakes or things aren't going your way, I think it's really important to figure out what's in your control and what you need to let go of, because the eating disorder wants control, 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 and thinks you can control everything. And that's not true. So when things aren't going right, you're fighting with somebody, or things aren't going well at work, or things aren't going well, you know, in your career, whatever it is, it's really important to sit down and say, okay, what do I have control over? That's what I'm going to focus on. The things I do not have control over, I need to let those go, and I cannot beat myself up over those things because I can't do anything about it.
Really important.
Yeah, Tara, it's kind of funny that you just said that, because literally last night my husband and I were just having this talk. Because I'll be really honest with you, this year I worked for a foundation. And the foundation closed the beginning of this year because the president of the foundation passed away, and I was her right hand. And when the foundation closed, I was without a job. And I went into that, I don't have control. And so I started exercising excessively and really counting calories again. And I lost 10 pounds and ran into someone from the scene that we both know, Lynn. And the first thing he said is, "Oh my God, you look really skinny. Have you lost weight?" And instead of being upset, I was like, okay, I've got control of this. And realizing, oh, I've got control of this thing again. And feeling worse and worse the more I could not find a job. I just, and so just spinning. My husband called it rage spinning, because I have a spin bike, and he's like, "You're rage spinning out there. You're trying to get control of this thing." And last night we were talking, and he said, "You know, I feel like you have grace and compassion for everyone else." He's like, no matter what someone has done, you make an excuse for them. You say, well, they were struggling, they were hurting. He's like, the only person I've seen you never have grace for is yourself. And it kind of hit me that I was like, what are you talking about? That's not true. And he kind of went down the list, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. And my therapist had said that a long time ago. And I kind of pushed it to the back of my head, because I thought, well, that's saying don't have accountability, because that's where my brain went. I'm like, I have to be accountable. For these things. So I never see it as I'm being hard on myself. I see it as I'm being accountable. So if I ate a piece of cake instead of a bowl of spinach, well, that's my fault. I have to be accountable for that. And I still struggle with that stuff. So I think self-compassion is super important. I am still working on finding it. I'll be honest. I'm still working on finding it, because I think it's hard. I do.
Yeah. Lynn, do you have any practices that you use on a daily basis to practice self-compassion for yourself?
You know, I try to take one thing I started doing that actually made a surprising difference for me. I like to put my phone on airplane mode until at least 10 a.m., 9 a.m. I like to get up early, get a couple hours in the morning of just kind of doing just exactly what my body or what my mind needs. If it's a walk, if it's just literally sitting in silence, if it's listening to an album that I like, or literally just doing something where I am not subjective to impressions, or where no one can reach me, where I'm not available for anyone but myself. That's what I try to do. My intention. It's not always, it's a lot harder than I thought it would be, but my therapist recommended me to do so, and it just kind of helped me finding my peace. Because I feel like for me, a lot of self-compassion and peace kind of goes hand in hand. When I feel like I got peace of mind and when I feel like I am calm, kind of in my own skin, just I feel at peace. I feel a lot more self-compassionate.
Mm.
Something I try to do. I'm not, it's hard, but just having
It's a
that.
daily practice, right? It's a constant practice, I find, to be compassionate. VK, when you mentioned your husband saying, you have a lot of compassion and grace for everyone else in your life, but what about having it for you? That really resonates because I have to constantly remind myself, like, all right, what would I say to a friend right now struggling? I need to say that to myself. I know that we only have a couple minutes left, so I want to ask this last question to all three of you. If you could speak to your younger self when you were struggling with an eating disorder, what would you tell her now?
I think I would say, as tough as things feel right now, please do not give up, because life can be so much better and you can be free from this. Like, I promise you, it's not going to be like this forever.
I think I would say refocus. Focus on the right things. You're focusing on the wrong things. Go back to the center. Refocus.
Yeah. That, I think I'd say she's good just the way she is, and that she doesn't need to change to be better. That I don't need smaller doesn't mean better, or, health is really important for you want to do. And it's not, I don't know. It's great to begin with.
Something else that really resonated with me that I heard, and I say it to myself all the time, all of us human beings, out of every horrible, really tough situation we've ever been in, we've survived 100% of the time because we're still here. So whatever you're going through, you're going to survive. You're going to survive it. You're going to figure it out.
So important to remember. Thank you. I want to thank you, all three of you, for taking the time and also for being vulnerable, for having this conversation. It's going to help a lot of folks in the industry and beyond. So I just want to thank you, VK, Lynn, Kimberly. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise, for sharing your experiences. And I really loved this conversation. So thank you, all three.
Thank you. And
Absolutely.
also, if anybody listening has any questions for me, you can reach out to me through my website. It's Kimberly Hershenson, lcsw.com. And I have a practice as well. So if anybody out there is seeking support, we can set you up with a therapist, dietitian, psychiatrist, whatever you need. We got you covered.
Yes, and Kimberly is in the Backline Clinical Network, so you can always go to Backline and specifically request to reach out to her, and we'll help that process. So thank you so much, Kimberly, and Lynn and VK.
Yes.
Kimberly, could you give that website one more time? Kimberly Hershenson.
Kimberly, Kimberly, Hershenson, Hershenson, lcsw.com.
Cool. I'm putting that in the chat box right now. Thank you all. I'm going to pop everybody out in this awkward moment. Here we go. But thank you so much for being here. And Terra, you just stay put for 1 second here. Terra, that was a really great conversation to end our year series with. It made me think about a lot of things. Especially that last question, what would you say to your younger self? And I don't know, all of us are made up differently. And I don't know if this would resonate with my younger self, but something that I remind myself of as an adult is that a calorie is a unit of energy. And if I want energy to do the work that I'm here to do in the world, I need to take in good calories. And, that has sort of, it's kind of like going back to high school biology or whenever we learned, what is a calorie? But at some point in time when I kind of made that translation from what I was learning in school to what I was eating and my own body's energy, there was something that kind of fit into place there for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I recognize it when I travel overseas and you look at the back of a package and instead of calories, it says energy. It is labeled as energy. And to me, that really stuck with me because I'm like, why don't we do that here? It makes, it just does a little something in your brain and helps with that, maybe that self-imposed guilt. But this conversation was really powerful. I think, all of us have issues at some point in our lives with body image or our relationship with food, of course, different degrees and levels. But I think that what everyone shared can really apply across the board to life and the tools specifically that Kimberly shared. I wrote those down. And want to practice those on a daily basis. But I'm really just always so grateful for these conversations because I think it's always such a blessing to hear that you're not alone.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And also the conversation, the fact that it was situated around adult experience with eating disorders and disordered eating, that was really special. I thought that was, when I was in college, I think as part of my own recognition of a disordered eating relationship that I had, I did a research paper on memoirs and just read memoirs of people with eating disorders. And I think that was my own way of having this kind of conversation because I didn't know where these conversations could be had. I don't know. I don't even know if they could have happened at the time, but I was able to find through my, my local bookstore or whatever, a section that had some narratives about it. And I think that was my way of entering these conversations at that time as a sort of self-healing. And I think that these conversations continue to be really important.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That's really interesting that you would, read memoirs.
I have to tell you, my sweetheart jokes. He always says, whenever I say, I had this question, and he always says, so I went to the library, and that's very much like, that is definitely sort of a go-to, I guess, that I've had since I was younger.
I love that. And really briefly before we end this conversation, we Backline is partnering. We started a partnership and we'll be continuing it with the National Alliance for Eating Disorders. And I just feel like they're an incredible resource for if you're a loved one, not knowing really how to start that conversation, if you're concerned with someone, or if you are someone that recognizes, okay, I may be struggling with this, but how do I even start? If you're not going to go to the library and read memoirs, you can go to the National Alliance for Eating Disorders. They have a ton of resources. I'm going to throw this in the chat.
I was just typing it right now. Yeah.
Yeah,
oh, you did it. Okay, you got it. Wow.
Yeah, it's they're incredible. And I just think it's so important to know, again, you're not alone. We all deal with this on some level. And so there are organizations and folks out there willing and ready to help.
That's right. Thank you so much, Terra. That is really great. And I'm just going to keep that on the screen for a moment because we're broadcasting in a couple of different locations. So I want to make sure that they both get there. But Terra, thank you. I think this is the end of our Fireside Chat conversations. I hope you have a really great holiday season, and I'll see you next year.
Thank you. Thank you again. This has been so incredible this entire year, and I'm very excited for our chats to continue in the new year.
Likewise. Thank you, Terra. Thank you all for being here, for being part of the chat conversation, for your ongoing willingness to talk about these issues. They're real human experiences. And, there's something about being in the music industry that on the one hand, we're artists. And so perhaps we are willing to mine our own experiences and talk about the hard stuff, but on the other hand, it's an industry, and I think that influences the topics that we do talk about, and it has created perhaps stigmas at times, depending on the topic or depending on the person, and just having these types of conversations just bring us back to the human experience and the fact that we're all just trying to figure it out here. And we're doing really good work as songwriters, as musicians, bringing these stories through songs and through these kinds of conversations out into the world. So thank you so much for watching, for being here, for being part of the SONA Foundation. Find out more about our TAP grants, our future Fireside Chats or past Fireside Chats, our Music and Money series, and our Career Corner and future developments over at sonafoundation.com. And see you next year.
Oh, we are coming to this world.